Okay, so Maya, very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Your results were stellar. So your pace of aging, which is the gold standard in measuring how fast or how slow you age, above 1.0 means that you are, of course, aging too fast. Below 1.0 means that you are aging slower than average, which is obviously good. And your most recent test result was a 0.56, which means at that rate, in 10 years, your body would have only aged 5.6 years. Again, phenomenal. So tell me more about your background. Before starting this longevity regimen with Novos, what did your lifestyle look like? Were you always generally health conscious?
I would say, yeah, kind of generally always health conscious. And I think at least for sort of my adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of like came from kind of like uh where am I going with this? Um Sorry, don't know how far back to go.
Like, do I start at like the beginning of my life, day one?
yeah,
Where do I
yeah.
start?
Um so my grandmother really liked eggs and wheatgrass. And it's like I don't like I'm not so much into those things anymore, but I think like there was something from um either from her or sort of in my sort of family lineage that was like health is important.
Yeah.
And that was in some sense instilled in me in ways that I like appreciate. Uh, But I think that sort of like in post or like in college years, I was sort of introduced to this sort of like Ray Kurzweil singularity tech kind of stuff. Um, and sort of like got fascinated in that realm from so I'm a software engineer and I kind of like thinking about technical things. And so I was like, oh, this is like an interesting time to be alive in the next, this was probably in the mid to like in the, I don't know, 2007 or something like that. Like the next couple decades could be like really kind of interesting. And like she wrote a book that was like live long enough to live forever. And this was like a while ago. And I was like, well, that's like a really fascinating concept. And like maybe I'm on the cusp of that. Like I don't really know, but maybe I am. And it sort of like got into kind of like my geek brain is like, oh, like what are the things to think about in this? That was a long time ago, right? And in that time, like people weren't really there was no at least I wasn't really aware of like pace of aging tests and kind of stuff like that. But I did sort of try and start sort of a whole bunch of different sort of health things that were sort of in the longevity realm, and yeah, and so I have sort of had a long term for like 15-year kind of on and off process of like, oh, this seems like an interesting um, thing to make me healthier, maybe live longer. Um, but it's
So
also
what's
kind of
it?
been like a fun hobby to kind of think about this stuff. And
Totally. So what's included in some of your longevity protocol? Are you prioritizing sleep in different ways? Are you approaching your exercise, your nutrition, and with a longevity focus or just in general health?
both. I mean, so like in my opinion, like there can be this distinction between longevity and health, and I kind of just think of them as the same thing. It's like people that are healthier live longer, and people that live longer tend to be healthier.
Mhm.
So there are some stuff that is like, oh, this is going to make me feel better today. Again, and other things that might be more long term. But yeah, I think like the basics are the basics for a reason, right? And so like sleep is like I have an Aura ring, right? I'm sort of getting more into the tech, but so like sleep is important. So I would say like sleep, exercise, diet is kind of the way I go through things.
And what does exercise look like for you in terms of like your lifestyle?
Yeah, so right now it's a lot of walking, and then like one session of like high intensity resistance training a week, and then like a couple hours of fun cardio, like dancing.
Nice. Awesome. So, what about notable changes to your body, mind, appearance, etc., that have happened since beginning your longevity regimen, and including Novos in that as well?
Sure. I mean, uh, like it's a little bit, it's still like it's hard to know how far back to go. I mean, lots of things have changed, but like I would like so in the last year, and things have maybe shifted a little bit. So I would say in the last 2 to 1, like 1 to 2 years, I have switched more from just like, oh, what seems interesting to try to, okay, I'm going to take these tests, I'm going to look at measurements, and then I'm going to look for stuff that is related to improving specific metrics. So that is one of the things that, and that's how I found Novos, and that's how I sort of like got more into this realm of it's a little bit more sort of biohacking and the rate, like this test, the pace of aging test seems to be like one of the best ones to track for sort of both in the moment health and ongoing mortality and stuff like that. So like within the last year, the thing I've noticed the most is actually my skin. My skin seems to have gotten better, kind of just like more smooth, a little bit brighter, and just nicer.
Is there anything else included in terms of supplementation, or do you keep it really simple? You take core, do you also take boost?
I take both of those
Nice.
right now, yeah. And then other supplements as well.
Do you mind sharing a little bit more about like what your other supplementation looks like?
Sure. It does sort of evolve over time, but in the last year there, it's been, I would say a handful of things that are kind of in the Brian Johnson category of stuff.
Mhm.
Not all of the stuff that he does. I don't like all of it, but I would sort of like kind of like pick and choose. Um, and and then so like my strategy in like in general is like what are the sort of like the higher tech things that I can pull out of or the science evidence-based stuff, but then also there's this idea of sort of ancestral health and traditional living, as like there are like stuff that doesn't have as much science behind it, but it's just been done for thousands of years, and like this is the way humans evolved. So I also take some kind of supplements from like I take an organ, um, uh, like an organ mix supplement, and then a mushroom supplement, um, and some stuff that is kind of like more in the realm of like ancestral health kind of stuff.
Amazing. So I'd like to shift these questions ever so slightly and ask you, what does quality of life look like? So in other words, ultimately, what does longevity mean to you?
Yeah. Um, so I like generally I would say like I quality of life is sort of this experience I have of feeling agency and gratitude. So if I can like good days now are days that I feel a lot of control over what like my choices, and then also a lot of gratitude for what's happening in my life. Like that's just a great place to be. And I think that like the more that I can build up that feeling in my life right now through whatever protocols or supplementations or health or whatever this stuff is, but then also extend that as long as possible, right? So like um kind of like keeping my clarity of mind as I get as I get older, that feels really important. But also just like keeping my capacity to do things in the world and then also experience appreciation for the world. It's sort of like yeah, like
That's a
the
that's a wonderful response. I love that. That's awesome.
mm,
Uh, so the next question on our website, novoslabs.com, we have a free longevity quiz that gives you a score of how well your lifestyle is optimized for longevity. I'd love to ask you the first question of that quiz. It has to do with your personal motivation for wanting to slow down aging. I'll read you the question as well as the answer choices. So you ready?
yep.
Okay, great. So what would be most important to you if you slowed down your aging? Having more energy, living as long as possible, having a younger appearance, preventing or healing diseases, or having optimal cognition?
All of the above.
That's fair. I never said select one.
Um, I I would probably choose living as long as possible, but that's only because I kind of think that that's correlated with a lot of those other things. And
Mhm.
like if I really had, if it was like, oh, you can live for 300 years, but you're can't get out of bed and can't talk, I would just be like, no, no, I don't want that at all. So like there are trade-offs to these things, but um, like if it was possible to live for a couple hundred years and maintain like a agency and gratitude, I think that would be I've actually have no idea how that would be. But it's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, it most certainly is. Um, Maya, any other pieces of information you'd like to share about your longevity journey thus far, your experience with Novos?
I think that like the thing that's coming up for me is that there there's all like there's the answers to that question that were just there. Um, but a lot of the motivation I have for working on this is it's just kind of fun. It's sort of like a fun challenge and it's a fun thing to figure out. And so like that, and to a certain extent, like that feels like an important part of the whole process. It's like if it's a slog, if you're like, I want to improve my health and it kind of feels like a slog, then it's just not gonna, it's not gonna happen. And for whatever reason, for me, it kind of becomes this fun puzzle or this fun kind of challenge and thing to think about. And that feels, um, I don't know, critical for it to be a long-term thing.
Yeah, joy, I would say joy is vital.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, Maya, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.